Well, happy May 4th. Happy Star Wars Day, everyone. We're here today. We're going to do a tribute to Carrie Fisher. Obviously, if you're watching this channel, you know she played Princess Leia in the Star Wars saga. And today is the day she gets finally her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So, in honor of that, we're just going to do a little brief retrospective, looking back at her career and how she affected us personally, growing up as kids, and all the way in through adulthood. I actually want to turn it over first to Gundar, kind of get your thoughts on it. What when you think of Carrie Fisher, what sort of memories first jump to mind for you?
Well, I've had changing feelings and understanding of the impact that her performance as Princess Leia had on me. Since looking back on it as an adult, because I was just like a tween girl whenever the first Star Wars movie came out. And I wasn't even really thinking about its impact until a few years ago, whenever we did our podcast episode where we were ranking Star Wars characters. I think it was our top 10 Star Wars characters. And I started thinking about her performance as Princess Leia and why I loved that character so much. And I began to realize the character was a major female role model for me when I was a kid, and I didn't even really recognize that because I was so young, going to the theater and thinking about the importance of this character historically in terms of the representation of women in cinema in the U.S. You've got a young female character who is both unabashedly feminine and then also very powerful and strong and speaks her mind all the time and stands up to really powerful people throughout the film. 5'2" Carrie Fisher mouthing off to Darth Vader, Dave Prowse in the big black leather costume, only just a few minutes into the film. And when you think back on that in terms of the overall history of women in film, that's a pretty jaw dropping moment. Just such a young woman having a scene like, and I didn't even realize I was so young. I didn't even realize how significant
Yeah,
that
that's
was.
well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was actually going to ask you, as a female, how you felt back at the time, but you've kind of already answered that.
Yeah, and what's odd to me is that, and I'm thinking about too in terms of my own life as the 1970s. As I said, I was a twin girl. My mom had just gotten divorced not too long before that. She was raising me and my brother as a single mom, working, entering into the professional workforce. And it was a time in the 1970s in the US when there were a lot of divorced moms doing that and having to really support a family on their own for the first time. And so I had a mom at home who was an incredible role model to me. And then I was going every weekend to Star Wars and seeing this
Yeah,
young woman on screen who could just kick ass and there was no real sense of it being unusual either.
you're right.
So I think what happened was having a role model at home and then a role model in cinema uh, kind of made me feel like it's just natural to be confident as a young woman. And it really influenced my self esteem in ways that I didn't begin to understand until I was an adult and look back on the influence of her and the influence of my mom, to have powerful female figures in your life like that when you're a young woman have such a positive impact. And I know, of course, that the actor and the role are not the same. The actor's not
Sure,
the character,
of course.
but acting is such a personal art form. You have an actor who embodies for us in every way a character. And so we can't help but want to recognize their art and be grateful for the power of their art in creating characters that have such impact on us. And I'm just really, really, when I think about it now as an adult, I'm really grateful for the influence that her performance had on me when I was a kid. And I have to mention one more thing when she reprised her role in the sequel movies. It was just delightful to see her and in a film like Last Jedi. The time that they spent showing the older characters on screen, how the camera there was no ageism involved in the film, and
Yeah,
how the camera lingered on them for close-ups, and gave them time to speak and have voice. And her character was just as vibrant in that film as it had been previously. And having a wonderful moment like the moment when Laura Dern's character, Admiral Holdo, uh, spoke to General Leia and said what a inspiration Leia's leadership had been on her. I felt when I was sitting in the theater watching that for the first time, I thought she's kind of speaking for a whole generation of women that I felt I was a part of. And then later I read an interview with Laura Dern where she said she was in fact doing that. She was speaking from her own personal experience, the inspiration that Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia gave to her. So I think she has an important place, I think, in terms of impact on a generation of young women who are fans of Star Wars cinema. And then also think about her advocacy for mental health issues and her honesty about her struggles with mental health and addiction. She's just a remarkable person all around, on and off the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to believe that, it's been what, 7 years now, that,
Yeah.
or about a little over 6 years now that since she passed away at age 60, far, far too young for that. Um, but yeah, you brought up a good point. I think, growing up in the 70s as we did, and seeing this strong female character on screen, I don't remember. I mean, obviously we were 10 years old. You don't think about this kind of stuff as much, but I never really even remember thinking like, oh, that's a strong female character. It just was something that was great. It's just like she was just this amazing character, along with all the other characters on the screen. It wasn't necessarily that she stood out for being a woman. But like you kind of said, she more than held her own against all the heavyweights that she was on screen with, and she basically was above past most of them in most cases. So yeah, very, very impactful on all of us, I would say. Looking back, it's interesting too when you look back at the original the original script reads when they were reading for their parts and things like that, and some of the other actresses who were trying, like Terry Nunn and people like that, who were reading for the role. And it's just, I know like retrospectively you look back, it's like no one could have done that but Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Probably not true, but
It would
you
have been
can't.
completely different, I
Right,
think.
you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah, it's like Kurt Russell as Han Solo,
Hmm.
something like that, or Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones. You just can't even. It would have been fine, I'm sure, but it wouldn't have been what it was. So that's the thing with Carrie Fisher. I think she brought a life to it and an attitude to it that I think only she could have brought. So I'm really, really happy that we were blessed with having her as Princess Leia. So Greta, what are your sort of takeaways from her career within the context of Star Wars and what she's meant
Well,
to your fandom?
well, as a female, I can say, um, no,
Of course.
uh, no. What I remember from back then, was, just, uh, loving her character.
Yeah,
And I saw Star Wars so many times as a kid, and I always just assumed Luke and Leia were gonna end up together because that's the fairy tale format, is the
right.
farm boy who becomes the knight, the
And gets the
wins,
girl
rescues
kind
the
of thing. Yeah.
princess, although she,
Right.
they've
Even though
gone
she
out
didn't
of
need
their way to,
rescuing. Yeah.
yeah, they've gone out of their way to point out that she rescued him as much as her. But
Right.
uh, it's one of those things that, we didn't really needed that pointed out to us back then. We knew it. She was, uh, and I think Carrie Fisher winning that part, she was so young,
Mhm.
Hmm.
that I think it infected a lot of things, and her snark and her attitude and her sense of humor, which you can see in all the behind the scenes stuff and all of everything about her. She's pretty much never without her sense of humor, and that attitude. And I think that had to have influenced how Princess Leia came out. A lot of times it influences on set. Like if someone's a smart ass, you're going to throw them more lines in the script where they can, where they can deliver. Like, if it wasn't Harrison Ford playing Han Solo, someone could have played him as a straighter hero and less sarcastic, and Harrison Ford brought that attitude to
Yeah, less
Han.
like a rogue and more
That,
like a straight
yeah,
character. Yeah.
yeah, it was devil may care or whatever, that, but also kind of like you knew he was blundering his way through it as well. And she brought that attitude of she's regal, but she's not worried about regality at all. She's not
Right.
worried about the royalty at all. She's
Right.
actually gonna get in there and get dirty with with everyone else, and she's
Mhm.
angry, she's pissed off. Just like Star Wars, the beginning of that movie, Vader's really pissed. You hear James Earl Jones, he's bringing out this super aggressive
Oh
voice of
yeah.
Vader on everything. And I think he's matching the energy kind of what the beginning of that movie is like, because Leia is pissed off too. That's once
Mhm.
she's caught, she's just bluffing her way through. And but I was always just impressed that she was not afraid of anyone. She didn't fear death. They said, "Well, we're gonna have to terminate you," and she's like, "Yeah, I figured." I figured you were gonna do that.
Right.
I do think they missed huge opportunities with her character as the original trilogy went on because there was only 3 movies. They could have used an extra movie that was more about her.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the one character, like they did the ensemble movie in Star Wars, then they
Yeah.
did Han's movie in Empire with Luke as the secondary main character, and then Jedi's more about Luke.
His Luke's movie, yeah.
Yeah, they should have done
Mhm.
one in between, maybe that explored more about Princess Leia and the impact like losing her planet had on her, and how other people look to her as for her leadership and stuff, because there's a powerful message in there about youth and youth leading the way, which doesn't really come across that much a lot of times. And uh Star Wars was kind of about a changing of the guard and the young people confronting the empire and the mistakes of the past. And uh I think that's a Lucas thing, that he wanted to express, and it
Mhm.
didn't go over so well in some of the movies, like necessarily like Phantom Menace. But anyway, I think her personality totally influenced the character. Was an incredible writer, and
Mhm.
um I would have, if we could ever like hear people's thoughts, I'd have loved to have just heard her thoughts for 5 minutes, at any given time,
Mhm.
because I just think there's more going through her mind. She had such a fast, witty, deep, multi-layered personality and mind and viewpoint of seeing things. I love all she has like uh I almost call it like a comedy special,
Mhm.
where she talks to a crowd for like 45 minutes or an hour, and it's hilarious,
Yeah, I've
and
seen
it
that.
and
That's
it and
really
it's
good, yeah.
based in truth. It's like all of her humor is based in truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Well, just
she
look
was
at her
also
roast of George Lucas, That
yeah.
is a
Yeah.
classic.
And you always got the feeling she was savoring these opportunities,
Yeah.
because they're few and far between. And someone like her, it was probably easy for people to overlook her, look past her, or to and probably the humor was a way, it was a defense mechanism as well,
Mhm.
of people not taking her seriously. Um, but um, but she might have been the smartest person in the room,
Yeah.
so
Most likely.
but her career as a script doctor and a writer, I've enjoyed her books. It's not always comfortable because it's honest, and like I said, she doesn't shy away from the truth.
Yeah.
But that's what's useful from life experience to the rest of humanity, is not the perspective you'd like everyone to have, but actually, the honest truth and what you have to bring to the table. And she had a lot of hard humor and hard edges, and expose the truth a lot, and that I find that personally valuable, as I got older, moving away from when I was a kid and stuff. Um, but yeah, if I could go back, I would love for them to write more for Princess Leia. And there's a lot of characters in Star Wars that have been persistent and always been there, but were never fully explored or done, given the respect I think they deserved. And I think the sequel trilogy was a huge opportunity that was a big miss for that, for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know the permanency of stuff until someone's gone and it's too late.
Yeah.
And so but yeah, I mean, Star Wars to me will always be, and there's no way around it at this point. It's Han, Luke, and Leia.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then all the other characters. But those were the three that I was in between movies. I was dreaming about, like, what are they
Yeah,
doing?
that's
I literally
those are the
have
three that
dreams,
capture.
you know.
Yeah.
I
Oh, I
literally
did
had
too.
dreams
Yeah,
all
I did
night
too.
long, like
Yeah,
of their adventures and stuff, you know.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Princess Leia was incredibly important character to me, um so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, when you think about those other actresses, nothing wrong with them or anything, but you just know they would have played more to the vulnerability and more
Yeah.
to the royalty
Hmm.
and the princess being rescued thing. And Carrie was just the perfect choice
Yeah.
for what they ended up doing with the character.
Hmm.
So
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. So, not to put you on the spot, Gundark, but I'll give you the final word on our memories of Carrie.
Just very, very grateful for her. I regret not ever getting to see her in person,
Yeah, me too.
like we have been able to see the others. But very grateful for her career. Also, as a writer, as Greedo pointed out, in the Princess Diaries, I loved that book where she used diaries from the Star Wars time. If you haven't read that, it's really interesting. The poetry is wonderful. It's very amazing thinking about her writing these things when she was so young. So we honor her. We're really glad that she's finally getting her star.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good
hard to believe it
celebration.
hasn't happened before this point.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Mark only got one a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that was
yeah.
hard. That was hard to believe. It's like,
Hmm.
what are you
That it
guys
took
waiting
that
for?
long. Yeah. What have you been waiting for? Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, um, she'll always be our princess. She's gone, but she'll never be forgotten by us.